How do you actually reduce the tax burden? What's involved with that? The accountant, what he wants is continuing year over year, month over month, recurring revenue from you. Are interested in keeping you in the system because the system supports their livelihood. You're going to have to build one type of structure if that's what you're looking for to optimize tax and stay in that tax domicile. And it's a completely different conversation. The client that says, yeah, I can spend less than 6 months in Canada. I can leave that tax system. We're going to create an entirely different type of structure for that client. A second passport or second citizenship can definitely be a great part of your overall strategy. But the problem in the space, Gabby, is there's so many people, so many companies, most of which don't know what they're doing. And their primary business model is to hawk these passports.
Hi everyone, welcome back to one of 4 episodes at the Jerz Way. Today, it's been a while that we're recording with Jerz, but we are bringing so much about what we're going to be doing with the next months. So, yeah, we're welcome you back.
Yep, thank you. We are live today from Tbilisi in Georgia. We took a few weeks off traveling around, and unfortunately, a few of the places we went did not have podcast studios. So we did some individual filming and just a little bit different content for the last couple of weeks, but now we're back. And the plan is to have these regular episodes once a week for you guys.
And one of the good things that we did this is that it gave us the time to analyze also the marketing and also go deep to the question of our clients. And we brought that as the first segment about the tax burden, guys. This has been one of the major top questions Jeremy has been receiving in the English line, but also in the Portuguese line. And that's one of the major topics we're going to be speaking.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I think as this space, the whole idea of sovereignty develops, so many other companies and people producing similar kinds of content, it's ultimately about getting the passport, getting the citizenship. And more, we're finding, yes, that's part of the strategy, but it's one small piece of it. So we really want all of you to work towards building structures and building setups that will make you completely sovereign. And what we're going to talk about with you today is that topic. How do you actually reduce the tax burden? What's involved with that?
Excellent, Jerz. So also what we have is that we have a lot of partnerships nowadays that we also want to discuss along the way in the futures podcast. But the first question is about the 40% tax burden that everyone are now speaking, and it's not a lie. So I make a lot of questions for you today, but I'm going to be bringing the 5 major questions your clients were asking you.
Sounds good.
So we have one of these that it says, hey, Jerz, I'm tired of paying 40% in taxes. Is offshore banking actually a way out?
It's actually a very common question. So again, to what I just said a moment ago, offshore banking is definitely part of the strategy, but the days where you simply open a numbered account, a secret account, those days are long gone. So offshore banking, while still important, is now just one part of the strategy. I think it would be interesting for a minute to sort of give context and history to what happened. So pre-2008, you could go open a bank in a different country. You weren't a citizen, you weren't a resident. Some countries in the Caribbean, Switzerland, they even offered numbered accounts. So the account itself was not associated with anyone. There was none of this KYC, none of this beneficial owners. It was possible to truly have anonymous offshore accounts. And then, of course, we had the financial crisis in 2008. And the response to that, first from the Americans, was to create something called FACTA. And basically FACTA required all the banks around the world to report back to the U.S. about U.S. citizens and U.S. residents. So the U.S. made a law which somehow they were able to enforce in countries around the world. If you had an account in Switzerland, if you had an account anywhere else in the world, that bank became obligated to report that information back to the U.S. So in a sense, the U.S. took the sovereignty away from the banks and from other countries and made those other countries and their banks responsible for enforcing U.S. law, which seemed ridiculous at the time, but they were able to move this forward, put it into law, and force banks to start complying. The response from many banks was, we're no longer going to offer accounts to U.S. citizens. In many cases, that's gone away, so U.S. citizens are able to open accounts in more places again, but the reporting requirement stuck. And then what happened a few years later, the other countries started in the EU, and then other countries created something called CRS, the Common Reporting Standard. And so they required, it was slow at first, the rollout, but they required individual countries to actually do the same thing that FACTA did for U.S. citizens. So you had to report account information, collect beneficial ownership information, and report that back to the country of residency, the tax residency of the person. And so then a while it became, okay, should I open an account at one of these countries that doesn't participate in the CRS? And now pretty much everybody participates. Georgia, where we are today, was one of the last holdouts. So this designation, is it a CRS country or not, is irrelevant at this point. Pretty much all banks are going to collect beneficial ownership information, and they're going to report it back to the country of your tax residency, which again is the idea of why tax residency becomes so important.
Perfect. Now that you are bringing all that information, I also want you to hold that in detail because I'm going to be asking you about that later in the third segment, because this question is also about how the clients want it straight, yes or no. So something that I notice about these questions is like it depends on the country, and also it's good to know about the history, but also the clients want to know, this is my help. So let's go with the second question. If I go with my money offshore, can I stop paying taxes immediately?
So again, there's so much nuance to all of this. The answer is yes and no. Yes, an offshore bank is an essential part of the strategy to help protect your money and help you develop this overall strategy where you don't have to pay tax. But here's the thing. So we'll take you, Gabby, for an example. You were a Colombian resident, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So as a Colombian resident, you're living there, you're paying tax or filing tax in Colombia. If you would have opened an offshore bank, say in Panama, say in one of the Caribbean jurisdictions, that information is still going to get reported back to Panama. It's still reported back to Colombia. So in that case, it's not in and of itself going to help you much at all. But now, where have you set up your residency?
Paraguay.
So Gabby now is a Paraguay tax resident. And as such, if she opens that same offshore bank, say in the Cayman Islands, say in Panama, that information is going to get reported to Paraguay, not back to Colombia. So as you can see, it's very nuanced. You need the complete strategy of the tax residency. We can bring other things in there, as we've talked about before, with foundations, business structures. But the essential part of it is combining the tax residency with the offshore banking structure.
The third question, it goes to that. So people ask you, Jerz, will I get in trouble? It's just I open the bank account right now and then later on the residency?
Again, it depends. You notice I love to say it depends. It's like the lawyer in me, it's like there's no black or white. It's all shades of gray, everything in this space. So if we look at the answer to that, again, the bank is going to report to where you have said and proven that you're a bona fide tax resident. So what happens a lot of times, we'll go back to Gabby's example. Let's say we had opened the account in Panama while she was a Colombian resident. Well, at that time, the information's going to get reported back to Colombia. So the offshore structure in and of itself isn't going to be the solution. You can change that information with the bank at any time. So I wouldn't recommend doing it and then waiting a few years and doing the residency, because in the meantime, the information gets reported back. But let's say you have a client, it's August 2025 right now, and they open up the Panama account, and then a couple of months later, they do the Paraguay. And before the 2026 tax filing for the 2025 years, they've changed all that beneficial ownership information. They've provided the updated tax ID, the updated address verification, all that KYC information for the tax residency. There's not really an issue with having opened the account a few months before.
When you have to your consultations, the clients always like bring the specific cases, the scenarios, but always they tell you, Jerz, why my accountant never told me this? So what would you reply?
Well, in a lot of cases, the accountants wouldn't be in business anymore.
Right.
Very few accountants sort of have the information that I've put together over these many years. And so your average accountant understands one thing. He understands, he's a Canadian accountant, say. He understands Canadian tax law. So accountants, basically, it's one of the original monthly recurring revenue models. And so the accountant, what he wants is continuing year over year, month over month recurring revenue from you. And if he says, yes, here's the strategy where you can leave Canada, well, he's just lost himself a client. Sort of like a doctor, right?
Right.
You know what I'm talking
Yes,
about. Yeah.
we cannot speak that much online, but we know what
Yes.
you mean by that. Yeah.
In a lot of professions, what somebody's looking for is a client for life. And it applies to accountants, unfortunately. They are interested in keeping you in the system because the system supports their livelihood.
Now, what is the legal differences about the structure when the accountant tell you, oh, this is not the right way, you need to continue paying taxes because if you get out of the system, it's going to be difficult to put you back to the system. There's a lot of accountants in Canada or in the European that they say to their clients, once you're back to the system, it's difficult to put you back. So they put that fear to your clients. How you manage that situation?
Well, in most cases, that's just simply untrue. Anybody can set up a tax residency. Anybody can decide, I'm going to leave my EU country, I'm going to leave Canada, and they can change their mind. You're not giving up the citizenship in most cases. All you're giving up is the fiscal tax domicile, meaning at any time you change your mind, you become a Canadian resident / taxpayer again. There's no country that's going to say, hey, we don't want your tax dollars. They always want them. So even if you leave, to simply repatriate yourself, your money, is generally going to be a much easier process than leaving in the first place. So I think it's in most cases, it's just a scare tactic to, again, keep you in the system, keep the accountant's paycheck coming. But it's not true in most cases. It's very easy to become that Canadian taxpayer again.
Okay, perfect. One of the questions that also your clients, when they are trying to understand, okay, they spoke with their accountant, they spoke with their lawyers, and now they speak with you. They say, okay, Jerz, I want to go all for it. How I can maintain my setup offshore structure in compliant and audit proof? Is there a way that actually can just manage that situation?
Now, are we talking about a client who is going to stay in their country, or we're talking about a client that's going to do the whole package, the whole setup, and leave their tax residency?
That's a very good question. So you're saying that inside of the country could be different, and when they leave the country is another thing.
Exactly. It's a completely different distinction. So if somebody's going to stay in the country, the compliance is very different because they're still subject to those Canadian, to those Dutch tax laws, whatever the country might be. So you're going to have to build one type of structure if that's what you're looking for to optimize tax and stay in that tax domicile. And it's a completely different conversation. The client that says, yeah, I can spend less than 6 months in Canada. I can leave that tax system. We're going to create an entirely different type of structure for that client.
What are the best offshore structures? You mentioned a lot Paraguay, Panama, but people tell you what is the best setup when I decided to leave, let's say in the next 6 months, because they're already setting up their banking, their offshore. So what is the best for? It always depends on the client.
It does depend on the client. I think one of the first places, or probably the first conversation we have to have if somebody's willing to leave their tax domicile is what they're looking for. So if that person's looking for maximum flexibility, they don't want to have to live in a particular country for any amount of days in a year, it's Paraguay. It's 100% Paraguay. Paraguay is the only country that has a tax residency where you don't really have to spend any time in the country. Beyond that, it depends on the goals and the needs of the particular client. So somebody who says, no, I really want a base, I want to go to a country, develop a network, find a home, somewhere I'm going to spend 9-10 months a year. That's when we look at Panama, we can look at Dubai, we can look at quite a few countries in Central and South America that operate in a territorial tax system. So that's understanding the needs of the client and what they're really looking for.
There was a trigger tweet a few weeks ago that people didn't like it that much, but at the end, it's the reason why you're here and you're so successful right now. It's because this tweet many people was speaking about actually, and it's when you said people are selling passports because they just want to earn their commission, but they don't want you to know that that is worthless. What happened there?
Well, it's a caveat. Obviously, when I'm writing something like that, you're trying to get engagement, so you make it very,
Yeah.
very pointed. A second passport or second citizenship can definitely be a great part of your overall strategy. But the problem in the space, Gabby, is there's so many people, so many companies, most of which don't know what they're doing, and their primary business model is to hawk these passports. So they're passport sales people. And they sell citizenship by descent. A lot of them charge tens of thousands of dollars for that process, and it shouldn't cost tens of thousands of dollars. Or they're trying to sell a Caribbean passport for $250,000, or some of these golden citizenship / residency programs, Portugal, Turkey, they cost multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars. And why do they do that? Because they make the most money. So I can sell you a Saint Kitts Nevis passport, and I will make substantially more money on that than I will doing just about anything else. So that's the reason. And then beyond that is just simpler. So it's a lot easier to say, okay, these are the requirements for a Saint Kitts passport. Pay your $300,000. I take my commission, which honestly is in the tens of thousands of dollars. Here's the requirement. Basically, they're handing you a PDF. Get me these documents. 6 months later, here's the passport. Whereas what I do is a lot more complicated and a lot more nuanced. I actually take a look at your structure and develop an individualized personal plan based on where you're at and where you want to go. And most people just don't have the knowledge or the bandwidth to be able to do that. So that's why they sell passports.
Even the audience, they still don't get what you exactly do because there's a lot of publicity out there about just passports and residency that they confuse you that you're the same guru guy selling this amount of passports, but they don't understand all your past experiences and all the amount of success you have in this to understand that you are not just giving that. That's part of a structure if it's applicable.
And that's it's a key thing when somebody asks me like, what's the difference between you and
Yeah.
this other company out there? The biggest difference is I've been doing this for what, 17, 18 years now. And pretty much every structure I talk about, every suggestion I have, every tool in my toolbox, I got by doing. So a lot of the people, a lot of the companies out there, they decide one day, hey, I'm going to start selling passports. And it's pretty easy to start selling passports, but it's a whole nother level to be able to take an individual client and find out what he wants, what he needs, and where he wants to go. Completely different business model. And another just real quick point I'll make, not only have I been doing this and practicing what I preach for 18 years, I also have the credentials. I went and got an MBA in international business. And, I learned not just what you can learn through these videos and that kind of knowledge. I actually have the textbook knowledge of the rules, regulations, and laws to back up what I talk about.
That's amazing because the majority of people right now doing this sort of business entities are just under 20 years old.
Yeah.
And you have your experience, you have your years of wisdom, and I'm glad I'm learning from you. I'm glad that I'm also expanding that in the other fields, in Portuguese, in French, in Spanish. The English line, I think is your part. But I've been learning so much from Latin America, all what you have to offer. And sometimes I wonder, well, years and at a certain point he's going to be continue doing this legacy for all their people because now people are thinking in their kids.
Exactly.
So their kids needs to manage all their operations because it's not just the residency. It's just the entire foundation of what they are doing now for the next 20 years. And I think, wow, it's what Jerz is doing is just what not 20 years old kids are doing. They don't know how to do it.
And it's a great point. With a lot of times what other people do, they try to sell you one thing and then that's it. They give you, if you're lucky, what you bought and see you later. I'm trying to build these relationships so I can work with that 20-year-old kid for the next, 20, 50 years. And as his needs, his net worth changes, the structure changes. So that's an important consideration. It isn't just one thing. You're trying to build a relationship with somebody who can help you navigate this path, not just now, but moving forward. I'll tell you another funny story. So I did a podcast yesterday, and the guy who runs the community, a friend of mine named Luke, he was joking on the thing that I'm the OG. I've been around for a while. When I first started doing this, he was still in diapers.
I don't think
And it was true.
no, but there are a lot of people that they were born in 2002.
Yeah.
And they're selling passports.
Exactly.
I mean, I'm older. Still, so it's it's very interesting to see that. I'm not judging. I'm just saying that if you are choosing someone, at least pay a consultation or jump on a free 15-minute call with our team. That we're actually specializing different people on the Jerz way to help you to get to the next level. And if you still want to speak directly, we can create a group with Jerz, and Jerz directly can speak to you to your relevant questions, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. We've grown a lot, but I'm still like intimately involved with each and every client. So
Every client.
it's not, you don't come to me and find that I'm just passing you off to other people like some of the other companies out there. It's very personal.
This is homemade preparation. Jerz is not doing third providers. He's not doing any of that. And I'm very proud of learning because all of this is taken to the next level where we are at right now. So now that we're in this segment about that we're explaining about this knowledge, how people can combine now the offshore banking, residencies, the foundations, send that information to their kids, a lawsuit, divorces, how we can combine all that.
Well, again, I think the key is to really understand where you're at right now. So no two structures should be the exact same, because the current structure is not going to be the same, and where you're trying to get to is probably not going to be the same either. So it's really understanding the current needs. Are you married? Do you have kids right now? Are you a single person? And based on those answers, based on how you make your income, what sort of business structure do you have established today? Citizenship, passports, residencies. We take a look at all of those, and then we're able to develop a plan. Could be an offshore plan, or it could be what I call like an onshore offshore plan, where we mix and match those things based on what your needs truly are.
And what the truly needs that your clients when they come to you, for example, let's speak. I was just reading one of the clients who asked you a question, which is, I don't feel even the taxes I was paying for the past 10 years are going to the right purpose. They're having like a waking
Yeah.
is also part of the need structures, or what's going on with that sort of clients?
Well, I think people are starting to really wake up a lot more. A certain type of person is, and they're starting to realize that the system wasn't really what they believed it was for so many years. And I think also, if you just look at where the world's gone in this century, I would say, so over the last 25 years, before you had taxes, and yeah, they were high, but people were much more content. Maybe they were paying 20, 30%. But over these 25 years, people have seen their taxes go from 30% to 40%, now 50, 60% in some cases. And it becomes confiscatory. So it becomes too much. And at a certain point, people just say, no, I'm not going to do that. And then the other thing that's happened, as those taxes kept going up and up and up, I think people started paying more attention, like, well, where's this money actually going? Is it supporting wars I don't believe in? Is it paying for pet projects, for charities, for mass immigration, for things that I just don't support? So it's a combination. It's just too much money, and then that money going to things that you wouldn't choose to spend your money on.
There's another question here that I received the other day, and they said, okay, let's say that I go offshore, I create the banking, I create all of these structures that Jerz is giving me. Is there any chance the government, once they realize that I'm not in their system but I'm on another system, they can froze my funds?
Well, that's the importance of one, creating legal structures. I say this all the time. It's not about hiding money. It's not about committing tax fraud. So as long as you're doing everything legally by the rules that they created, you don't really have much to worry about. You don't have to look over your shoulder. They're not going to be able to freeze your account. Secondarily, that is the reason, no, you don't just open up a offshore bank and get a residency and call it a day. Say, hey, that's my structure. That's not enough protection. You need to put, especially high net worth individuals, as your assets grow, you need to put that money that is inside the offshore bank inside a foundation, inside a business. So you have to make structures that are like a fortress that protect you, not just from the government, not just from the tax man, but from lawsuits, from liability, from ex-spouses, from anybody who wants to take your stuff. I mean, it's an unfortunate thing that the state of the world we live in is there are people who make their livelihood basically just preying on others and looking for that opportunity to sue and take what you've worked hard for and you've built and you've earned. And what I really try to do is come up with these structures that are legal, that protect your money, but more importantly, place you in a situation where you're no longer having to look over your shoulder that somebody, a lawyer, a government, is going to be able to take from you what's yours.
You wrote a tweet that also became very famous a few days ago. You're doing it. You're doing good with your algorithm. This tweet was about one of your clients who got divorced, and the wife took part of his money. He got married again, but actually, before he got married, he set up a Panama foundation. Tell us about that case.
Correct. So I had a client, worked with him many years ago. He did not set up the structure. And in his first divorce, he was taken to the cleaners, lost more than half of everything, said no, never again. He didn't learn in the sense that he made a better choice and had a lasting relationship. Unfortunately, he chose to get married again, and again, the relationship didn't work. But this time, he actually created the structure. We did a Panama foundation and a company inside the foundation, a bulletproof setup. And he had that before he got married a second time. The second time, the marriage didn't work out, but it was a whole nother ball game. He really only had to give his second ex a minimal amount because everything was in the foundation. He personally didn't have any assets.
Yeah, but it's funny because people will say, why he even got married?
That's a whole nother podcast and conversation.
Right, but it's well, my second language is obviously English, but when I learned more about all of this, guys, I never understood like why people were so worried about marriage. I mean, in the West, for me, marriage is like love, commitment, and it's not about assets or pursuing. It's not from where I come from. But when Jerz start telling me, okay, I understand why many men are running away from this law because they're losing. It's crazy.
I'm sure you saw in the last few weeks there was big conversations on the different socials with Andrew Tate and some of the real famous influencers about whether guys should get married. And it's like, don't get married, don't do this. And personally, I'm not going to get in that conversation. I'm not saying that's not my field. I'm not saying whether guys should get married or not, or women should get married or not. But what I say is if you're going to do it, protect yourself, create these structures, and then a lot of those negatives that people like Andrew Tate talk about, they simply go away because you're protected.
Interesting, because it's I mean, I've been understanding more about the crisis that the individuals in the West has. It's very unusual to read even the clients that tell you, hey, I lost half of this, and it was actually the other half, but it could be also for women.
Yeah.
I had the honor to speak with a wonderful woman who created a beautiful success business in Canada, and also the husband took half percent. So it's insane how this government has to be the intermediary to ruin literally your life, your relationships, everything.
Yeah, it's the government has sort of taken over, expropriated the marriage institution, so to speak. And the result is you create these legal situations where by getting married, you're putting yourself at some sort of financial disadvantage potentially, should the relationship not work out. And again, I'm not getting into the whether you should get married or not, but there are ways you can have your cake and eat it too. You can get married if that's what you want to do, but by creating these structures I talk about, working with somebody like myself, you can also be protected and not have to worry about those worst case scenarios that unfortunately have become more and more common.
There's what's going on in 2025? It's August. We're recording this in August. Probably people are going to be seeing that in a month. But what's going on? What is the best thing that people need to know and made it work out for the next 10 months, 12 months?
I think we're in a time of great uncertainty right now. So both Gabby and I, this is neither of our first experiences in Georgia. Gabby was here, correct me if I'm wrong, about 5, 6 years ago?
6 years ago.
6 years ago, and I was here during COVID actually, in 2022, 23, somewhere around there. And one thing that both of us noticed, is sort of the change in the people, what we see. There's like, how would you describe it? Like a tension in the air,
A
right?
lot of tension, yes. And I noticed that in my first time, people were not smoking that much like nowadays. And that's one of the economic situations that happened in Venezuela when the crisis started. The cigarettes increased by 1,000%. And also I noticed that here the smoke habits started, which is means anxiety,
Yeah.
uncertainty.
Yeah, and I think you nailed it. It's like there's not just here and other places where we've been recently.
Yeah.
You just feel this like anxiety, this tension, like everybody's waiting for something to happen, and we're not sure what that is. But I would really say the next period of months is going to be a period of uncertainty.
I just know that uncertainty creates strong times. I believe that I've been more closer to God. I've been more optimistic about like the future. I know what's going on, but I think it's an era that needs to be resetted. That it's a reset of a new world. And I believe that all this tension, I can feel that all of us are feeling that we're observed. We're afraid of speaking. We're afraid of doing something. And at the end of the day, when I speak with that energy, you can call it God, the universe, whatever you believe, guys, I believe that what's going on is just that banking structures, governments are gonna be falling apart, and we're gonna be having a structure, new structure that's gonna be replacing what we learned.
I agree, and I think that again, back to the topic of today, I think that that's all the more reason that everybody needs to create a plan and create these structures I always talk about to protect not only yourself but your assets, your net worth, and that's done through diversification. It's done through giving yourself the right to travel, the right to move through residency, through citizenship, creating business structures and bank accounts in different jurisdictions because we don't know what's going to happen. It's a very uncertain time, but what I do know, what I do feel comfortable about, is that if something happens, I'm personally so diversified in currencies and countries and passports and citizenships. If somebody's going to be okay, it's going to be me because I've given myself all of these options, the optionality. And that's really what I encourage all of the people I talk to, all of our clients, to do that. So they give themselves options.
So if those things are taken away from you, how will you start again?
Well, ideally, with the structures, not all of it is going to be taken away. I think, like, if I look at myself personally, how I'm structured, I'm so diversified that you would be talking about basically the end of civilization. So, yeah, if you have some sort of nuclear war or some sort of worst case scenario, yeah, everybody's at zero and it's Walking Dead in the streets and we all have to figure it out again. But I don't think it's heading in that direction, that extreme. I think it's going to be little things. I think it's going to be, Europe introducing a CBDC, a central bank digital currency. I think it's going to be a slow erosion of civil rights. And it's, again, give yourself options and then it doesn't matter as much. Let me give you an example. I was talking to my dad last night, and my dad's very political. He was a professor at UC Berkeley. I've talked about him before. Our politics don't align at all. Okay. And all he wanted to talk about last night is, oh, Trump this, Trump that, the worst case scenario, this is going to happen. He's like, what do you think of that? It's like, it doesn't affect me. because I've structured my life so that, tariffs go to 100%. It doesn't matter to me. I don't care. I'll buy stuff other places. And it's the same thing that I always tell the clients. If you have enough diversification, if you've set up your structures correctly, this stuff just doesn't affect you like it affects the average person.
The interesting fact that you are saying is that when people see this all around, the best thing is just to react, right? But people are or just sleepy or they are afraid to react. They are afraid of doing these two consequences in human nature, the double F, fight or flight.
Yeah.
They're sleepy.
Yeah. And they don't care. I mean, most people are just, they're not paying attention. And quite honestly, most people, like on social media, they're called normies, right? The 9 to 5 people who don't really think about any of this stuff. In most cases, they're going to be okay, regardless of how many times have we lived through, this is the end of the world, this event, this election, and then what happens? The election happens, the wrong side wins, or the wrong side, according to you, wins an election. You wake up the next day, and you know what? The world's still the same. Nothing's changed that much. So I think, we're just going to have this slow erosion, and it will affect a lot of people. I don't think we're looking at the worst case scenario. I think you're just going to have a certain small subset of the population that has figured out how to escape the matrix or whatever you want to call it. They're going to be living their best life, doing what they want, and everybody else is going to move more and more towards a world where they don't have civil rights, they don't have free speech, they don't have the ability to access money, and they just do what they're told and live in their government-sanctioned prison, so to speak.
What are the top 3 mistakes that actually people do when they start awakening in that aspect?
Well, I think the biggest mistake people make is not acting. So a lot of people will wake up and say, hey, I realize I'm getting a raw deal. I realize that the system is broken, it isn't working, and I need to make a change. But then they never take the action to make that change. It's like, oh, I'll think about it. I'll stay at my job for another year, another 2 years. And then before they know it, 10, 20 years has passed and they haven't done anything. So I think that's the single biggest one is that people just don't act. They don't they don't make the change. And then beyond that, I think people get a lot of bad advice. Mm-hmm. So that causes people to make a lot of mistakes. So, people want to restructure and change their whole life and do this, and then they go on social media or look on the web and find a person to help them who offers the lowest price. And it's like, well, then it doesn't work out. It's like, well, what did you expect? You went with the low bidder. You didn't do any research into this person. You just responded to the social media post by the 18-year-old kid, and now you have this worthless $250,000-$300,000 passport. So I think that's a big mistake that people make too, is not talking to the right people and getting the right advice.
Well, it's just funny because I received a message, guys, on my ex account, because I am in part of the different communities of languages, and I received one of my French clients in the language school who told me that he finally learned the language, right, after his time, 6 months, 7 months. And he says that he went to Paraguay with a local lawyer and the person disappeared. The person disappeared and never finished the process. He says, at least I got my documents back, but the person was scamming me to get more money for those documents. And I was like, well, it's possible to help you, but why you never told me that? He said, because I believed that your pricing was expensive.
It happens more often than you think. We get a lot of clients who we talk to, who do consults with us, who say, "Oh no, we found somebody who was $100 cheaper, who was $200 cheaper," and it's like, okay,
Do it.
I don't.
Yeah.
In general, I think we have very fair pricing.
It is.
We're nowhere near the most expensive or even on the expensive side, but we're not the low bidder either. And I get asked a lot, will you discount? And almost always the answer is no, because it's just not the business I want to go after. We have our pricing to cover our costs, to make a little bit of money, and to offer the service we offer.
Exactly.
And I'm not trying to compete with the guy who's $200 cheaper and cutting corners and creating an operation that most of the time falls apart and doesn't work, and you don't get what you paid for.
No, and the thing about that is that all our services include translation, the government fees, the
Yeah.
delivery. It's something that is already covered that you don't need to think twice. You just need to relax. You just need to go to the appointment. If it's remotely, it's remotely. If it's something that you need to go in person, you have to go just one time, and that's it.
And
All our
and it's so
services.
funny. The pricing in this industry, for the most part, is not transparent at all.
At all.
So we are one of the very few companies out there that actually, all of our pricing's on our website. You go to thejerzway.com, you can see how much we charge for everything. And most every other company, it's like this convoluted process where you have to talk to somebody and then you still won't get a price, and then they'll send you a price, but you don't really know what that price includes. You go to our website, look at any one of our products, you'll see the price, the product, everything that's included.
Everything.
There's no surprises. You're
Yeah.
not going to come to Paraguay and we're going to say, "Oh, you want a translation? Oh, you want..."
You know that in Spanish we say the Chilean package, the Chilean package.
What's a Chilean package?
The Chilean package means, guys, that if you don't know what's next, you expect like a surprises in the Chilean, paquete chileno. That's how we say in Spanish. And one of the persons that actually was asking me about that, I was reading that it could be a Chilean packet, what you offer, guys, because it's too expensive. And I was like, well, because maybe that person is not our client. But the expensive, go to the website, try to compare other competitor and see if you actually find the information. If you are able to find the competitor, find out what you're going to be having.
Exactly. Make sure to ask the questions and really nail down what's included, what's not. If you ever come to me or to one of the people who works for my company and you say, "Hey, does it include that?" You'll instantly get yes, no. In most cases, it's yes, because our packages pretty much include everything, but we're completely transparent. You're never going to come to Paraguay, come to Panama. We're going to say, "Oh, yeah, you want a translation so that we can process your residency, another $100. Oh, you want a tax ID? Yeah, well, no, that's just not the way we work."
That's not the way. Actually, you can also see that in our website. As part of services, you can see that we own businesses of translation. We own businesses of schools. We own the same businesses of physical addresses. Our headquarters are in every place. We have the physical domicile,
Fiscal,
fiscal
fiscal domicile.
all of that. We have the offices. I
Yeah.
personally been in charge and all that. I've been cleaning the offices, very proud of my job. I've been hiring the people, so we all make homemade.
Another thing, just to understand a little bit more about how we operate in these different countries, we set up our own operations. This is what Gabby was getting to. So again, what we do differently, most people in this space subcontract everything. So 99% of the people, you go online, you go on X, Twitter, Instagram, and you say, "Hey, I want to do a Paraguay residency." And you talk to somebody and you give them the money. What they'll do is subcontract that out and give it to somebody there. And when I started this, I didn't want to operate that way. I never have operated that way. And in every market where we operate, what I've done is I've created an office. I've hired an in-house lawyer who works for us and only us, and built out the business so we control the process at every step, from the translation to the dresses. We control it. It's us. So that's another thing that really sets us apart from everybody else.
That's why we are here in Georgia, because we are doing it everything. We want to make the mistakes first for our clients to have those issues in the future. We prefer to take the responsibility, and that's what other people are not doing, taking responsibility and being adults about that, which is what adulthood means.
Exactly. And coming full circle now, back to offshore banking, as Gabby just alluded to, the reason we're in Georgia is we are setting up operations, more
Offices.
formal operations, because we have been doing some stuff in Georgia. We hired employees here, office here, and we're creating the system where internally our people are able to assist you with opening the offshore banks in Georgia, because Georgia is one of the best offshore banking destinations, certainly on this side of the earth.
And we're very proud of that achievement, because now we're able to have employees that speak Russian,
Yeah.
which is a big thing right now in the community. I speak Russian. I mean, I've been managing in here, but so far we needed experts in this field, and we hire good people. We're going to continue being here in Georgia, even with the tension that we are feeling. We're going to continue here for doing the operations. But again, guys, we are doing everything that is possible to protect your privacy, to protect you, and also to that you can have power. Because at the end, we don't want you to feel afraid that your documents can be lost, or other parties have intentions, that we know how it works with data, or the data run nowadays. So yeah, I mean, that's our experiences. When we started with Wyoming, when we started with Paraguay, we have done all that. I mean, I personally been managing all this area of human resources and making sure every person qualifies for you.
Yeah, and again, I think as the world continues to change, we'll be setting up in different jurisdictions, and we stay on top of that, on top of the game, because the setup, the structure that you have today, in 10 years, 5 years, because of not just you, but also geopolitically, the way the world works, the way the world's going to go, might not be the same structure and setup that you need. And as these places change, as the needs change, we're going to be right there beside you, guiding you to the new setups that are better.
Excellent. Well, guys, I think we have to finish this episode, and we hope that we can answer other questions in the next episodes. We hope to advance and make some progress in this time in Tbilisi. We found a beautiful podcast studio, and we can definitely continue recording this for you.
Yep, we'll be back here at least a couple more times in Tbilisi doing further episodes. And again, thanks for joining us, thejerzway.com, and you can find us on all the socials at The Jerz Way.